Alright, now that we have a database set up, now we need to talk about how do we use the database. Now there's several different ways we can approach this. Because the biggest problem that comes when interacting with the database now is the fact that the tasks are so time consuming. Now remember, we only have 16 milliseconds to complete everything in any given frame. So that means all of the method chains that something has to go through, all of the I/O, unless we explicitly make that task or that piece of something asynchronous. Now there's several ways we can approach asynchronous elements. In a future week we're going to talk about async tasks. They're a very common way to do it. It's a pre-built class structure you can use to define a task that should be run on a thread other than the main thread. Other means are we can define an actual thread and define a runnable and get it going, which is what we're going to do in this video. Or the third option we have is we can use a service. If we were writing in Kotlin, it gets even easier from that because you just simply tell it to use it a different thread, and it automates a lot of that stuff for us. But for now, we're in the Java world, so let's make all of these pieces work. Now, what we're going to do here is I want to make a... sorry, my nose is itching really bad. We're going to make just a simple fragment. And this, what we're going to do in this fragment is just a couple of fields just to simply allow input into the database for now. So I'm going to just call this guy user fragment for now. And I don't want either of those pieces. So let's finish. And we're going to wait for a while because apparently this is going to be really slow. Come on. There we go. Okay, and in my main activity, I'm going to, instead of having the text here, I am going to embed the actual fragment itself. Okay, well, I'll go do it the old way. And let's do match parent for all of those. Name. There we go. So what we're going to do for this fragment is I'm going to just drop in, kind of like we did the week before, is I want to just bring in the ability for the user to type in things, a couple of things, and a button. We need to change this frame layout here. Let's change this frame layout to a linear layout with an orientation of vertical. Okay, I want to drop in some text input. Add the design library. There we go. And we're going to call this one first name. I think just for simplicity's sake in the video today, we're going to do, let's see, width can match, but height needs to be wrap. Content, so we don't repeat our mistake of last time. And let's put this one now to be last name. Let's give these guys an ID as well. ID. Come on. Oh, stupid Gradle build. And we get rid of this text view too. ID equals. Oops. Ah, come on. For the love. There we go. We'll call this one last name. And let's make one here. First name, so we can target both of those. And I'm also going to drop in a button. Let's do that real quick too. Let's drop in just a button underneath here. ID button, let's call it save. Okay, extract our strings lest we forget and get ourselves unnecessary lost points. There we go. So what I want to do in this fragment, similar things what we've done in the past. I'm going to get reference to my root. There we go. And let's generate another one. Let's do an override on resume. So let's get a couple of variables here. Private view. Let's do text input edit text for first. And let's do another one. Last. And our button save. So inside of our on resume, let's populate those real quick. First equals text input edit text root find view by ID r dot ID dot first name. Last equals text input edit text root dot find view by ID r dot ID dot last name. And lastly, now let's populate our button. What do we call that guy? Save equals. Man, my fingers aren't working today. Holy cow! Root dot find view by ID r dot ID dot button. Okay. In our save, we are going to attach now a set on click listener. Same thing we've done in the past. Come on. There we go. Okay, nothing fancy. We have a reference to our text, our edit text, so we can get those values, and we have the button, and we have a listener. So when we click save, we can then kick off the task that is going to be time consuming, and the thing that can't happen on the main thread. So let's go ahead and do that. Then let's save to our database. Let's insert something into our database. So to go ahead and to insert things into our database, now we need a reference to the strings. So let's create a couple of strings here. String first name, and we can get that from first dot get text dot to string last name equals last get text. Okay, and then now we're going to just start a new thread. Now if you remember these, the syntax is pretty easy. New thread, and thread accepts one argument. It needs a runnable, something that it can run on a thread. And then our thread, and since we're making this guy anonymous, we'll just start it once it's ready. So our thread is going to be pretty simple. We need to use the static method in our app database to get the instance of what we're wanting to, and we need the context of our application. Okay. Specifically, we want to get our user DAO. That's the thing that we're accessing here. So we need reference to our user DAO. Sorry, let's break this down a little bit more so it looks better. User DAO. And on our user DAO, we're going to call the method insert. And our insert is going to need a new user object. So new user, and then we're going to pass it. We don't have an ID. And our first name now, we can pass it first name, last name. Let's see. What else did it want? Let's look back at our signature. First name, last name. We need a user ID and email. User. And we can just pass empty strings for those. Okay, I don't really want to fight that. Actually, we're going to change our plan real quick. We're going to go make another constructor in here. We need the constructor that accepts all of that stuff for I'm just going to make a constructor that takes a first name and a last name because that's all I need to work with. We need the other one for room to work with, but now we have a constructor that will accept just the pieces we care about. We can construct one, and we'll pass that now to our app database. Okay, so we define a thread, we define a runnable, and in the run method, we do the thing that's going to take some work. In this case, that's the database operation of insertion. And then we'll go ahead and start that. And now what's going to happen, though, is this is going to go through and it's going to run, and our database objects will be inserted, but we'll never actually see it come out because we're not rendering things. We're not going to talk about how do we put these things on a usable way in the UI until next week because that topic is pretty complex. I'd say it's even a little bit more complex than what's going on with Room. So we want to take our time with it. So just so we can see that happening today, I'm going to put in a log. And is what we're going to do is we are going to get a list of our user objects back from our database. So let's try pulling it out after we put it out. And we'll get all of our pieces. User DAO dot get all. And in our log, we're going to test. And we can just say, oops, all users. And do our users dot toString for now. Okay, so we can see some users coming in. Or we could parse a for loop if we wanted to print out actually the contents of our users. We could define a toString method. Other things like that. But just for now, let's go ahead and run this. So we've got a little bit here on the screen you can see. Again, the big focus for today and for this week is getting comfortable with the concepts behind the Room database and getting the Room database up and functional. Because storing data is a really critical piece. Oh, we have a new error message. Let's see here. Okay, did a little bit of research, and actually, that error message this is part of the fun of Android. Is Google changes things and they don't actually tell anybody what's changing. So I made the mistake of updating Android, and I shouldn't have done that because they've actually changed some things. So when our compiler now, they're no longer explicitly adding annotation processors on the class path based on things that are in the class path because it slows down build times too much. So when we have an annotation processor, i.e. our compiler that's going to do our Room compilation, they actually want us to change that now to annotation processor rather than implementation. They want us to explicitly declare that. So we'll need to fix that to make that error message go away. Once we get that fixed, I did notice too as I was debugging, I forgot to set export schema here to false. In our database entities and our annotation there for the database entities, this used to be, the default used to be false, but they've changed it to true now, which is also annoying. But again, Google does what Google does. And also, since we made a second constructor, we need to annotate the one that's not pulling everything, i.e. the one Room would use with an @ignore. So Room will know which constructor to use when constructing objects. So now we can run our application again. Let's do this. And hopefully we won't have any error messages again. Hallelujah. Alright, so now we can enter our first name. Johnny Depp. And we can hit save. So again, nothing visuals happen because we haven't connected any of those pieces together yet, but we can see things happening now in our logcat if we do a test. You can see here we have one user stored in our database. Or if we go do it again, let's do Patrick Dempsey. And we can hit save again. And now, notice our users comes back with 2 user objects. Or we could do it again, and let's do Taylor. Whoa, what is that thing doing? Swift. Save. Again, now we have 3. So you can see things are being inserted in our database, because when I pull them out, I am getting my list to show me those pieces coming out. And again, if I wanted to parse through the list rather than just dumping the list through and I wanted to see the details of those, I could do that pretty easily if we added a toString method. So again, if we can come in and hit generate and do toString, tell it to toString those pieces together, and now inside of our thread here, and since remember this guy's a separate thread now, so we can feel free to go do as much as we want inside this thread. I can do a for loop. Let's just go ahead and do me a for each. So for each, now if you guys should remember these from 1400, we're going to take for will give us an independent piece. So for example, I can say for user u in my users list, then let's take out, let's do this, our tag, and do user, and then we can do u.toString. So now when this runs, we'll see the contents of an individual user take place. You'll see, for example, several pieces of those user won't exist because we didn't bother to give it email addresses or user IDs or some of those extra components for this little demo, but just so that you can see things and how they're working. Wait for Android Studio to build. And let's give ourselves a new name. Let's do Josh Jensen. Woo! Man. And we hit save. And there you go. You can see user ID, our ID is auto-generating as we expected, right? First names are populated, last names are populated, user IDs and emails are null because we didn't provide those. But the database is storing those pieces. Even if I close out the application completely, we can even swipe it out. See, you can tell I've been grading a lot. Let's get rid of that. And we come back in and launch it again. Let's see where room demo. There you are. And we can do a new person now. The application's completely restarted. So let's put a new name here. Let's do Spencer Hilton. We hit save. And notice all of the names come back because, again, that database persists between runs of our application. Okay? So, as you can see, Room is going to be a really powerful tool for you. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to wrap your head around, so that's why we're going to focus just on Room this week. But as always, if you've got questions, make sure to post those in the discussion boards, and we'll see you guys online.